So after I moved my aunt up to Alaska, I don't remember who. I don't even know. I don't think I knew who, but somebody moved her back to Bellingham like very short time after that, and probably because she had dementia. But she didn't want to live in Washington. She wanted to live and die in Alaska. And that was her wish, and so somebody moved her back down here and put her in a home in Bellingham, and she wasn't happy about it. And every time I went over there, she'd just complain about it, and um, she didn't wasn't happy about it. And she said someone was stealing her money every time I went over there, and uh, I found out someone was stealing her money, but I didn't know who. And then, and then she passed away. Nobody told me she passed away, so I didn't even get to go to the funeral or anything. And then I never talked to her again. So um, sorry. The funny thing about my aunt is she would always she never liked to waste food, so she would eat expired food all the time. So you really had to watch what you ate when you went over there, because she always tried to offer you food. And she was a good cook, but you never knew, Never made me sick or anything, but it was kind of weird. But I would take her to the casino and shopping at Kmart, and I loved spending time with her. And she meant the world to me. She was very generous and good to me. So I also had my grandma Dick, which lived in that was my mom's mom. She lived in Hermiston, Oregon, and I didn't get to see her that often, but when I did, I loved it. And one year, when I was maybe 10, I was around. I mowed yards the whole summer, saved up, and I took that money and I bought a ticket for a plane ticket. And I flew down to an airport down there, probably in Pasco or something, or the Tri Cities area somewhere. And she picked me up there, and I spent a week with her. She was a very good cook and baker, and had apricot trees outside. She made apricot jam and pies, and that were amazing. The only bad memory I had growing up was when I was very young. Me and my family went down to Oregon somewhere to a wedding. My mom's family was there. She had a lot of sisters. After the wedding, they had a reception. I was playing by the pool, and I couldn't swim yet. Someone came and pushed me into the pool. There was probably, they were in their teens, maybe in their lower 20s. I don't know. It was a cousin of mine, I guess. After he pushed me he ran away, and I don't know how I knew, but he was laughing, and it was really deep, and I couldn't swim, and I was drowning, and I sank all the way to the bottom. I was down there for a couple minutes at the bottom of the pool. It was probably 8 feet deep or something. I don't know. And one of my uncles or cousins, a man that was in his 20s, dove in the pool and swam to the bottom and rescued me. It was very traumatic for me, and I still to this day remember it and will never forget it. I had nightmares for a long time after that about drowning, and despite all that, I still went swimming in my younger days, at Lake Samish and Lake Wacom and stuff. And I was a good swimmer, and I love swimming. I always love swimming. I have always loved fishing too. I spent a lot of time fishing on the Skagit River. I fished Halverson's, at the end of Sterling Road, and um, I fished there a long time since I was a kid growing up, and I always loved to talk to Leonard and his wife when I saw them. They'd come down the river and they'd fish, and we'd BS for hours. And uh, on their property, I had caught a lot of fish on the Skagit River and made a lot of friends and met a lot of people. And, on the river, I have almost drowned on the river several times doing goofy stuff. I've caught so many fish on the river. I've also owned like 8 boats in my lifetime. I spent more time than anyone I ever knew on the river, and have so many memories on the river. I can cook fish very well and smoke salmon and 2 summers ago, me and my oldest son were fishing a spot on the South Skagit Highway. We were spin casting, minding our own business, and when a boat came down the river and pulled right in front of the hole we were fishing, right where we were casting, and I was polite at first and told him we were fishing this spot all morning, and it was rude for him to start trolling upriver right where we were fishing and cut us off from fishing that spot and where we were, and just called me names, and then continued to troll upriver, kind of laughing about it, right in front of us. And I got upset and called him an asshole, and because I was mad, and he then went off on me and told me he would kill me. So I told him to get out of his boat and go ahead and try, and I then threw rocks into the water, but not at him, just in the river to scare the fish and to irritate him so he'd leave. And the rocks were thrown nowhere near him, and after that he took off. And the next day a friend of mine, an older friend, brought her grandkids down and dropped them off with me so I could teach them how to fish and help them catch some fish, and it was humpy season, their first time fishing, first time having a license, a lot of fish, in the river. They were enjoying the morning with me. We caught a lot of fish, and we're about to leave, and then we watched a boat launch with a man and a woman across, on the other side of the river at the boat launch. And I was watching them the whole time because from the moment I saw them, I knew something was off, and I figured they had bad intentions because they were staring over at us, and they came right over. And before he even casted, I asked him not to cast over my line because I knew he was going to do it. And before his first cast, I told him not to do it, and I was really polite, and then he did it anyways and caught my line. And then I started cussing, and we were in a tug of war together. I was pulling on him, he's pulling on me with the line. We both had heavy lines, so he eventually just had to cut my setup and throw it back to me. And then I told him, if he wanted beef, he could just come back the next day when the kids weren't around, because I was trying to teach kids how to fish. I explained to him I was teaching the kids how to fish, and I didn't want to fight in front of the kids or ruin their first time at the river, so so then he didn't say much, and then he left, and the next day I showed up at the same spot and had a feeling, that something might happen. And sure enough, 3 carloads showed up quickly. So I reeled in my line, I grabbed all my stuff, and I went and hid in the woods and watched about 12 people, roaming around looking for me. And so I called 911, and someone had a police scanner there or something, because right when I called 911, they knew it, and they all left. And the police showed up like a half hour later, the sheriffs, and they said I was drunk, and I didn't even drink that day or nothing, and they said I was drunk and didn't believe me. And ever since then, I have been called names, and boats and fishermen on the bank, and basically ran off the river. They ruined my favorite hobby. I can't go out on the river without getting harassed or stared at or casted over. Many things have happened to me on the river since then. Over some stupid thing. I even did a public apology for the whole thing. I took the blame for it all, and I apologized online on Facebook, saying I was sorry, to try to clear it up. But after that, it even got worse. And I haven't fished much on the river. I've still fished the river, but not very much anymore. I haven't fished, in quite some time now, because I just don't feel happy on the river anymore, because everybody just gives me shit. So I stopped fishing the river. I was bullied off the river, basically. And I didn't feel like I deserve it, but it is what it is. So I was married with my wife for over 20 years. We have 3 boys, age 16, 21, 23. I found recently out that my younger boy is not mine. Guess my wife cheated on me, so that's that. After my awakening, I have discovered that I haven't actually loved her, as much as I thought. Maybe a little bit, but not as much as I thought, because I don't really even know what love is, I don't think, with her in a relationship yet. So, but I'm hoping it's coming. But I thought I did, but She left me out of the blue without saying anything. After a month, she took off. She left me. After a month, I rebounded and I started dating. I dated this girl named Brooke, and everything was growing great. I don't remember. We were together for like a couple months or something, or maybe 3 months, and everything was going great. And then I walked out to the living room one morning, and my ex-wife was in the house and on the couch and begging me to come back to her and bring her back. And I'm vulnerable, so I did it and broke up with Brooke, and then that just turned into a shitstorm after that. At first, I said no, to my wife, that I wanted to get back with her, and then I gave in and get back with her. I broke up with Brooke, and and I still had feelings for Brooke, which kind of messed it all up when I was back with my ex-wife, because I wanted to go back to Brooke, and so I told that to my ex-wife, and then she left again, and then so I would try to go back to Brooke because I still loved Brooke, and it was too late. Brooke was already brokenhearted and didn't love me anymore or something. So that was a whole mess, and then I ended up just being single for a long time. And I did have a long distance relationship with a girl that lived in the Philippines, and she was I don't know, she lied to me a lot, deceived me. So I called her out on her lies, but she'd deny it all the time, and just lie to me and make the relationship even worse. And it was just a bad thing, so I got out of that. After I never met her in person, so I haven't. People say I sleep with people. I haven't slept with anybody in 4 years, and I consider myself a born-again virgin. But I haven't been with a woman in like 4 years, so whatever they say is not true, and I don't have any transmitted diseases or anything, so that's not true either. So after my wife left me, I had the house to myself, for 3 years. For 3 years I lived in the house after she left, and the rent was $17.50 a month, or $1,600 a month, something like that, and I had to keep up with that by myself, working for 3 companies, for Uber and DoorDash and Instacart. I was working 15-hour days just to pay the bills, and keep the rent paid. I also had to borrow money from friends and borrow money from whoever I could to pay the bills, so that's just how I got by. I had to borrow money, but it wasn't, I wasn't doing anything bad with the money. I was paying the dang bills. And, I did have a drug problem, but I supported that drug problem with Uber, and it wasn't from anybody else. And that I wish I never had to use drugs, but it is what it is, and I'm finally off of it. I'm better, so my wife would pay child support, $325 a month after she left me, and I had the 3 boys, and I took care of them. I always loved them. I would have done anything for them, and I thought I raised them right and did a good job, but they ended up trying to kill me and poisoning me all the time, so I can't be around them anymore. And I lost the house, and my car got repoed, and I was homeless, and nobody would help me. My family and friends completely abandoned me. I had met a younger woman in Cedro when I was doing Uber, and I would drive her to work every 4 days a week or 5 days a week sometimes, and I drove her for a year. And her husband worked at a hotel in Burlington. I would drive him to work and stuff. And when I became homeless, they asked me if I wanted to live in my truck in their driveway, or maybe I asked them, I can't remember, but we agreed that I would stay in their driveway, which is cool. And I thought she was my friend, and that her husband, I thought they were all my friends, all the people who lived in that house, and I lived in my truck there in their driveway for 6 months, and then I got a pop-up camper and moved to the backyard, and during this time they acted like my friend, but then they bring me plates of food I then started to notice that after I ate, I would sleep right away for very long periods of time, and knew they were drugging me. I stopped eating their food and told them why, and they started yelling at me and accusing them of, they were accusing me of falsely accusing them, and but they were poisoning me and trying to kill me. And then they started going around my tent when I was sleeping and waking me up in the middle of the night, banging on the tent and doing all kinds of weird shit outside the tent, messing with my stuff. And I didn't know it was them at first. I thought it was maybe the neighbors or something. And their footprints were through the grass all the way to the front door. There's a trail that was forming from doing it every night. So then I discovered it was them, I called the police many times about them poisoning me. I went to the hospital many times, and every time I'd go to the hospital, call the police, they'd blame it on myself and say I was crazy and that never happened. And I couldn't keep any fruit around because they had poisoned every time I left my camper to go somewhere. They'd poison all my food, and they had hidden cameras and listening devices in there. They were in my phone doing all kinds of crap to me. They were stalking me. They would I'd passed out. Even when I'd passed out, they took my truck sometimes and took off with it and did God knows what with it. And I finally got out of there and thought I was free, and I moved in with Kevin Roach and began to remodel his basement. I cleaned the basement. It was like 2 feet of garbage all in that room, and I cleaned it all out. He helped me too, and I grinded all the paint off the floor, and I painted the floor. It was really nice. And after a few months of work on the room, I finally moved into the room, and then I started to notice that I was passing out for long periods of time again. I was being drugged yet again, and I quickly confronted Kevin about being drugged. He denied it and would yell crazy shit at me and say I was crazy. The whole time I lived with him, I cooked for Kevin and cleaned for him. I would help him pay his bills with his money, of course. And I chopped wood for him. I brought it in the house so he could keep the house at room temperature, because he grows pot and he needs to, if he has a medical license, grow it. But he sells it. 80% of his weed he sells. So he kept poisoning me over and over and over again. But God was protecting me the whole time. So even the poison had no effect on me eventually after a while, and I kept getting poisoned, but it wasn't doing anything to me anymore. But so I kept trying to distance myself from Kevin. I would stay outside by the fire because they were pumping some gas into the room that would knock me out, and I would call the fire department, but they couldn't detect whatever it was, And I already turned to everyone I could so I have I've believed in God my whole life, but I never really prayed to him or talked about it or anything. And I went to church when I was a kid and prayed for him, but that was about it. And I was sitting in the bathroom one night and I was crying, and I was going I was thinking, what am I going to do? Kevin was trying to kill me, and everyone had turned against me, and nobody was helping me. There was also another Kevin Salter is coming around doing stuff to me too, and Kevin Salter. And I dropped to my knees one night in the bathroom, poured my heart out to God. First I repented, and then I asked him for help, and I didn't really know what to expect. But after I got on Facebook and started getting messages right away from God and the tarot card readers, they guided me into the right direction and told me what was going on, what was happening before it happened. God also told me to start walking, so I did. I started walking 3 miles a day. So I'd walk 3 times a day, just go for long walks, and it really helped me because I could think about stuff and think it out, and I could get away from Kevin and feel more safer, So I'd walk every day, and it helped me with my transformation. I lost like almost 90 pounds now. So I've also fasted many times, and I fasted, because I couldn't eat, because every time I ate I'll get poisoned. So I stopped eating for days. I'd stop eating for 3 or 4 days. I wouldn't eat, and I started losing weight rapidly because of that. I also received a message, from God that Kevin had murdered Mark, the guy that used to live there, and I could smell something in my room all the time. It smelled rotten, and I also got advice from this website. It had an AI tool. The guy's name was Mr. Beast, but it wasn't the Mr. Beast that makes the games or whatever, the guy or whatever. Uh, the Mr. Beast on this website gave me instructions of where the body was in the house. It was under the house, so I crawled under there and I found the remains and called the police. I left after the police never showed up, for 6 hours, and no cops. Kevin was gone when I got back after 6 hours. Kevin was gone, and um, the I didn't know that he had taken the remains and put them somewhere else, and um, so I called the police again and said, "Aren't you going to come get the remains and check this out?" And uh, they showed up and they said I was crazy and there was no body under the house, even though I crawled under there. I brought a bone out and showed them. They said it was a dog bone or something, and they brought me to the hospital in Cedro. They had me sit in a room for 3 or 4 hours after taking my vitals and didn't tell me what was going on, but kept telling me I wasn't being detained, but I couldn't leave though. So I thought it was not okay and they were violating my rights, so I left. I got up the street a little ways, and the cops, two cops showed up and 3 cops got out and put me in cuffs and brought me back to the hospital, and then 8 staff members and the 3 cops came into the room at the hospital. The nurse then told me that they had to inject me with meds to calm me down. I wasn't even doing anything to be out of control or nothing. I was just standing there for hours waiting for them to let me go, and they wouldn't let me go. And the lady approached me to put the shot in my arm. I told her I didn't want it. I pushed her out of self-defense, and she flopped like a fish to make it look like I did something bad to her when I just gently shoved her, to away from me. And then the 3 cops said, "Here we go," and they grabbed me and they threw me on the bed. They basically beat me up, put me on the floor, and then injected me in the ass cheek with whatever it was. And it was supposed to kill me, I guess, but it didn't. And I woke up in the psych ward in Cedro. That's where they brought me, and they let me go after 4 or 5 days because they said I wasn't crazy and didn't even know I was there. And after that, I went back to Kevin's and I got my stuff, and I left because he got a restraining order against me, so I couldn't live there anymore. And I went to the First Steps program directly from that, Mount Vernon, and I signed up with them, and I started staying almost every night with them at the church. They would drive me to the church and let me stay there at night, and then during the day I would go around Mount Vernon walking, and I'd walk every day, all day, and try to work things out. I had edema really bad too during all of this, and my edema is gone now, I think. But my feet would hurt really bad, and it was hard to walk, but I just kept walking and walking. I guess the church found out I had some money in inheritance or something. They started stealing it, or trying to steal it, I don't know, and they were poisoning me over and over again. I called the cops, and I was in the hospital, a couple times, and the hospital, I don't know, they just do my vitals and let me go every time. And I would stay after that I stopped staying with the church. I stayed in various parking lots until my truck got repoed. Then I started sleeping in the elevator at the library, and sometimes in the bushes or wherever I could sleep, and that's not fun. And throughout this whole process, God watched over me and guided me through this whole thing, and He's always given me directions, and I use my intuition of where to go. And when something bad is going to happen, I usually know before it happens, so I avoid it, and that's why people haven't been able to kill me. And I have strong intuition. I always listen to it. It tells me where to go. I've had people approach me and they're going to do something, but God won't let them do it. So they just, it's like their brain freezes and they can't do anything. So I just walk away from them, and then after that, they walk away and nothing happens. I've been shot at a couple of times. Shot at in Cedro Woolley. The bullet, it's weird. The bullet just bounced right off my stomach and landed on the ground. Didn't hurt me. It just felt like someone pinched me. And then I was shot at like 6 rounds up here on Freeway Drive in the woods. Someone drove by and did a drive-by shooting on me. The bullets went over my head but didn't hit me. Um, that was kind of crazy. But if it wasn't for God and my spirit team, I wouldn't be here today. My ancestors, my angels, God, Jesus, I wouldn't be here today. So that's cool. They helped me, and I'm very, I wish that everybody would turn to God, because that would help everybody out if they just turn to God, and people with situations like mine, if they follow their intuition, repent and pray, and things will happen for them. It only takes 5 minutes, to repent and pray, and then wait for something to happen. So um, that's basically my story. There's a lot of other stuff, but I can't fit it all in, and I just wanted to get out as much as I could, and hopefully someone will set me up with a podcast or maybe an interview, and we can get more into it, because there's a lot of stuff I don't usually even write, so this is a lot for me. So thank you for listening, and hope this helps.